This video content is not intended for children.
Realistic Fishing, take 3416. It's time for a cheap one in a nice glass. Sometimes that's just what time it is. Welcome back to Realistic Fishing. Today I'm in the studio and I'm going to talk about something simple yet complicated, and that's putting line on your reels. We're going to start out with this cheapy Baitcaster here. As you can see, the spool is still full. First thing we got to do is get that off of there. I could cut it off with a scissors, but that's not how I like to do things. This seems to be 12-pound test. Kind of brittle. I think it's been on there for a while. This is mono, and I like to use the stuff that costs about $1.75 a spool. Being just an okay fisherman, I go through a good amount of line, so I don't want to use the most expensive line. And I found that 12-pound mono is pretty much good for all-around fishing. You know, bass fishing, white bass, that kind of stuff. I'm not talking about bluegills, although you can catch bluegills on 12-pound test. I have a video where I'm catching panfish on a Baitcaster. So we've come to the end of the spool. Oh, let's check it out. Here's what came off of there. That's going to go in the trash. It is not going to go on the ground. It is not going to go in the trees at the park. In the trash. And now we have an empty spool, and it's time to get some line on here, and this is where the tips are going to come in. I'm going to do the best I can in this small studio, and luckily I have a drink. Let's see how this goes. Here's what I'm using. 12-pound test Omniflex. When I put line on a Baitcaster, I like to put something through the spool and take the line off like this. Not like this. Not like this. Stick through the middle so it can just unwind as the spool spins. That is very important. When I get to the spinning reel, that's going to change. Anyway, let's get tied onto the spool and get going. Arbor Knot. So we're going to use an Arbor Knot.
The Arbor Knot is a typical fisher's knot. Its primary use is to
attach the line to the spool. Alright, I'm going to get a picture of an Arbor Knot here. This is the one we're going to tie to get the line on the spool. It's easier for me to show you than it is for me to try and describe how it works. So using this simple diagram, we're going to tie the Arbor Knot on. Alright, here's where you get into some mechanics that you don't have to go along with, but it helps. I like to thread the line through the guides onto the rod and the reel at the same time. So I'm going to feed it through the guide, under the spool. So now something kind of tricky is happening, but you can get through it, right? The line is coming out the back. I'm going to feed it back up and through the same gap it's coming out of, but now it's in front of the spool. I'm going to reach up in here with my pinky and grab the line at the line guide. Now I have my slack line right here, and I can tie my Arbor Knot. Now that my Arbor Knot is tied and tightened, I'm going to cut off this little tag right here. I can best reach in there right now with a pair of nail clippers. And now we start spooling. For the first few rotations, I don't care if it's getting line twist. I just want it to grip the spool. Now that we're on the spool nice and tight, it's time to thread something through the center of the spool. A pen, a pencil, anything that is long and thin that will fit through here. So what I'm going to do is hold this pen between my feet, like my shoes or slippers or whatever I got on. The idea is that as I reel it, it can spin. That's how I can get it onto the spool without any twist. let's just go ahead and get that done real quick. And after about 45 seconds of straight reeling, the spool should look like this. Here's a couple quick tips. If you're getting too much line on one side of the reel, while you're reeling the line on off of the spool, use your thumb to guide where the line is going. If I push my thumb out this way while I reel it in, the spool will stack heavier on that side. If I push my thumb this way, it'll stack heavier on that side. Just a little tip to help you get it on there straight in case something has gone wrong. I also like to fill my spool about 1/8 of an inch from the top. So if you can see 1/8 of an inch of the spool, that's about as full as I like to go. Alright, done with the Baitcaster. Let's check out the spinning reel. Check out this competitor spinning combo here by South Bend. I got it on clearance for $10. Was 22 something. That's more than half off. So I thought I'd give it a try. What I'm going to do is take all of this line that it comes with off the spool, and I'm going to put my own fresh 12-pound test on there instead. Some people say you can take the spool off and soak it in hot water, and that'll help take some of this out of the line. I just like the confidence of fresh line that I put on there. You know, it really helps, especially if you're fishing somewhere new or fishing with the piece of equipment for the first time. Just want to increase those chances of a good experience. If you're pinching pennies and don't have $1.75 to put new line on it, then by all means use the line. It is better than nothing. Wow. I mean, this is a big spool. Look at all this. Do not leave this laying somewhere. Animals can die getting tangled up in this kind of stuff. Dispose of it in the trash like you're supposed to. You could even recycle it. I think there's a few places out there that might even recycle it. Almost there. Let's see how hard it is for those last few twirls of line to come off the spool, jerking the whole thing all over the place. Alright, we're going to clip this knot with those nail clippers. And there we have it. Just like before, we're going to take the line, we're going to run it through the rod onto the reel. We're going to tie it with an arbor knot. The trick is to have the bail up when you tie the knot. I'm going to proceed until I get to that point, and then I'm going to talk about the next step. Here we are. It's time to tie the line onto the spool, and we're going to use that same arbor knot even though it's a spinning reel. There we go. Let's clip that end off. Get those first couple winds on here. Now, this is the weird part. You could reel it onto the spool like this, with the label facing up, but don't. I have found that most lines go on better upside down. It all has something to do with the way it's wound onto the spool when they make it. Upside down helps for me. And there is one surefire way to tell if you're doing it wrong, and that's the line will bunch up around the rod tip. It'll start wrapping around the rod tip, making it harder and harder to reel. If that is happening, all you have to do is flip the spool over. That's it. It's that easy. Let's just get reeling. I like to pinch it between my fingers up here just a little bit. Just for a little extra tension so it goes onto the spool nice and straight. It's not bunching up on the rod tip, It's not getting all twisted up anywhere else, coming off the spool. Nice and easy. If it's not going on nice and easy, you got something upside down. That's it. Now we reel, and reel, and reel. I think we're going to quit just about there. Just about an 1/8 inch. That's where my sweet spot is. Being fresh new line, it will want to come off the spool if you don't have enough weight. This is 12-pound test. It's slightly wiry, so if you're casting a marabou jig, get ready for trouble. If you're casting a 1/2 ounce weight in a hook with a bait, you'll be a-okay. Anyway, I'm going to cut the line. We'll get this finished up. We'll go back over the basics, and we'll call it a day. And for storage, I like to peel a little bit of this label back, just a little bit with my fingernail. Put the line under the sticker right there. Pinch it closed. That's it. So, for baitcasters, something through the middle. It needs to spin like this. For spinning reels, I like upside down or paper label down. If that gives you trouble and it starts getting wrapped around the tip, try paper label up. It's going to be one of those two. Usually paper label down though. I'll stand by that 80% of the time. I hope these fishing line tips make it easier for you next time you're spooling line on a reel. Thanks for joining me for a quick drink and putting a little line on my fishing reels. And thanks for watching Realistic Fishing. Keep it realistic.